As Minister responsible for youth development and empowerment, I am obliged to initiate conversations about how our teeming youth are faring in this country. It is my considered view that this will enable us collectively develop appropriate policy responses to inspire, equip, and empower the youth of Ghana to unleash their full potential for national development and global competitiveness. This is central to His Excellency President Mohammed's reset agenda, because the youth of our country represent not only our present strength, but also the foundation on which we build a resilient, productive, and inclusive society. Today, we share a clear data-driven picture of where Ghana's youth stand and the required steps our government seeks to implement collaboratively with all our partners to ensure progress and address key challenges. The journey to unlock the full potential of Ghanaian youth is hinged on 5 strategic pillars, namely health and well-being, education and skills training, economic empowerment, civic engagement and community participation, and the last, personal development and leadership. These central pillars are the fulcrum around which key youth-centric government policies revolve. It is my firm conviction and shared belief that addressing these central pillars through identification of the gaps and preferring appropriate recommendations will help position our youth to be key actors on our path to growth and development as a nation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our country, like most countries in the sub-region, have a youth population with 38% of our citizens falling within the age range of 15 to 35. A further 36% of our population are children within the ages of 0 to 14 years. These statistics clearly show that our country is experiencing a sustained youth bulge with significant portions of our population being young. This obviously presents both an opportunity and a threat. It becomes an opportunity when we, as a country, are able to implement policies that can prepare and engage the energies of our young people. The threat arises when our country fails to create the enabling environment for our youth to be positioned as meaningful contributors and participants of our society. To begin this section, we'll address the health and well-being of youth, identified as a fundamental component among the key pillars. Good health is essential, as poor health can impede progress in education, skills training, and personal development, as noted by the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, that healthy citizens are the greatest assets any country can have. According to the World Health Organization, health includes physical, mental, and social well-being, not just freedom from illness. Promoting youth health in all these areas is a national priority in Ghana, though there are persistent challenges. Ghanaian youth experience both opportunities and difficulties. Access to education, technology, and healthcare has improved, yet many still struggle. Increasing mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. Ongoing sexual and reproductive health issues due to limited information and services. Illnesses tied to poor nutrition, inactivity, and risky behaviors. These problems affect young people's well-being, national productivity, and social cohesion. Substance abuse among young people in secondary schools and tertiary institutions is a growing concern. Young people are increasingly using harmful substances such as alcohol, marijuana, various narcotics, and especially synthetic pills like Red 225, popularly known as Unim Red, which causes dangerous numbness and detachment. Although poverty, unemployment, and emotional stress contribute to this issue, many of these drugs are expensive and widely available, suggesting a systematic problem within social networks and supply chains that reach educational campuses and communities. National data reveals high levels of drug awareness and exposure. 41% of our tertiary students and 37% of our senior high school students have encountered drug use. Colleges of education report the highest awareness at 54%, followed by technical universities at 45%, public universities at 41%, private universities 35%, and nursing and midwifery training colleges at 30%. The problem affects all types of institutions, but I realize that at the nursing level it's a bit low because of how the schools are run and operated. Access to drugs is disturbingly easy. Young people obtain substances from peers, local pubs, street kiosks, and increasingly from on-campus dealers that operate discreetly. The rapid growth of online ordering and courier delivery systems now allow access with minimal human interactions, making enforcement and prevention more challenging. Ladies and gentlemen, the major drivers of drug use in schools are curiosity and experimentation, stress relief, peer influence, social pressure, feel-good factor, and enjoyment, academic pressure, social anxiety, emotional loneliness, depression, identity struggles, the desire to feel included, and confidence. 63% of our youth do not think that drugs boost academic performance. 15% believe they do, and 22% are unsure. The combined 85% who reject or are neutral about drug benefits suggest a chance to address this issue. 43% think drugs boost social confidence, whilst 37% disagree. 57% believe drug use helps manage stress, with 30% opposed to this notion. 44% say drugs improve sexual performance, but 32% do not. Urgent action is needed to address these perceptions. Substance abuse poses serious risk for all ages. Around 26% of first-time users are aged between 14 and 15. And let me repeat, 26% of first-time users of drugs are aged between 14 to 15. The early drug exposure can impair memory, learning, emotional control, and judgment. It increases the chance of truancy, mental health issues, and long-term addiction, threatening the development of future generations. And I've always emphasized that when one person in your family starts abusing drugs, it is not just his problem anymore. It becomes a family disease that affects everybody. So we must all be a bit more concerned. It must be noted that 41% of first-time drug users are within the ages of 16 and 17 years. Substance abuses during this period may result in declining academic performance, behavioral problems, risky sexual behavior, emotional instability, and reduced likelihood of continuing to tertiary education. And when we get to the tertiary level, when we go into education, you realize that the data corresponds. A lot more gets into senior high school, but very few are advancing to tertiary levels just because of some of these problems. Once again, let me emphasize that each lost student to substance abuse represents a lost opportunity for Ghana's growth and transformation. To expand our conversations today, our study also revealed that 25% of early users are within the ages of 18 and 19. So you realize that it is just still within a certain age group, from 14 to 15, 16 to 17, and then 18 to 19. Drug exposure at this stage has been observed to disrupt the transition into independence. The consequences may include early exit from school, addiction, depression, campus violence, and it also leads to unemployment, because once he's not productive, he cannot find himself employed by anyone. This stage shapes the nation's workforce. Therefore, protecting it is a national imperative. Our data also revealed that 8% of early drug users are 20 and above. So you realize that the data is bigger for the younger ages, but the more they grow, because they've already been exposed. So in their older ages, very few people move into drug abuse and substance abuse. Campus surveys indicate that 86% of students can easily access alcohol, whilst weed edibles, 59%. Marijuana, 53%, also widely available. Additionally, 12% report awarenesses of hard drugs like cocaine and heroin. showing that substance use is a very significant issue on our campuses. Our school authorities are addressing these challenges with responsive measures. Research shows that 36% of academic institutions offer counseling, peer support, drug awareness programs, random checks, and referrals. Despite these efforts, the challenge remains significant and requires national coordination, investment, and collaboration across sectors. 36% is adequately inadequate, and so we must do more. If all that is available on our campuses is 36%, then collectively as a country we must begin to look at our educational institutions critically, because a lot of our young people at that stage of their lives are in schools, and so that is when we need more counseling services to support whatever they go through. In order to address this concerning trend, the Ministry for Youth Development and Empowerment will collaborate with relevant stakeholders to formulate and execute a comprehensive national strategy targeting this issue amongst young people. Distinguished guests and fellow citizens, I will now focus on mental health. Mental health challenges are rising among Ghanaian youth, with depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicidal behavior being most common. Studies shows 8% of tertiary students and 90% of the general population experience depression. The WHO estimates that 6.34% prevalence in those aged between 20 and 29. Gambling has further increased mental health issues. 43.6% of young gamblers face depression, while 68.8% report anxiety. And so the betting issue is an issue that must be brought to the fore, so we discuss into details. But it has a lot of negatives than positives. Young Ghanaians confront pressure from academics, social media, career uncertainties, and rapid societal changes. The nation must invest in youth mental health by fostering supportive environments and providing early intervention awareness and access to counseling. Families, schools, and communities should nurture resilience and emotional well-being. Breaking stigma and empowering youth are a collective responsibility. Road safety is a growing concern for Ghana's youth, and I'm sure you are wondering why road safety. Because a lot of our young people are riding Okada. And so it is a major concern that we must look into, and as a ministry, it concerns us. Between January and August 2025, there were 1,937 road accidents, 10,957 injuries. 77% of fatalities involved pedestrians, motorcyclists, and cyclists, with males making up 82%. It looks like the men are dying more than the women. The highest risk age group was 20 to 29 years old. University of Ghana research indicates young males are most affected, as they comprise a large share of those on the roads. In June 2024, 12% of fatalities were under 18 years, whilst 88% were adults, suggesting youth remain disproportionately vulnerable. And like I was saying, because young people, a lot of our young people are riding Okada, realize that the data suggests it. And so this Okada business is something that we must all begin to have a second conversation about. Because if you are getting 1,937 road deaths, and out of that, 77% are young people, it leaves us with the question of what is happening to our labor force if we are losing all these people at this age. The discussion of youth health and well-being would be incomplete without addressing matters pertaining to HIV and AIDS and sexual health. Notably, in 2023, 27.4% of the 17,774 new reported infections occurred among the youth population. Furthermore, the incidence rate of sexually transmitted infections increased by 32% in 2024. Of particular concern is the observed decline in testing rates amongst young people. which is a trend that requires immediate attention. Now that US aid is gone, it looks like the health authorities will have to help us do more in that regard. Emerging national discourse highlights the growing issues of overweight and obesity among Ghanaian youth. Linked to evolving lifestyle patterns and nutritional habits, recent evidence indicates an overall prevalence rate of 16.1% for overweight and 9.4% for obesity in this demographic. Among females, 15.9% are overweight and 22.9% are classified as obese. Among males, the figure are 10.1% and 17% respectively. Higher risk is associated with older, educated, wealthier, and urban residing youth. In the 10 to 14 age group, reports show that 1 in 6 adolescents is overweight and 1 in 10 is obese, with higher prevalence rates among females. Factors such as urbanization, elevated socio-economic status, low physical activity, and lifestyles concentrate to this risk. Implementing early interventions can result in significant long-term health benefits. Gaming addiction is also emerging as a significant concern among young people. Mental health professionals are advocating for increased awareness and educational initiatives. Identified consequences include diminished academic performance, weakened social relationship, and negative impact on mental health. Severe cases may result in depression, anxiety, and social isolation, all of which can adversely affect the mental well-being of young people nationwide. Young people are spending more time on their mobile phones than ever before, which is increasingly linked to mental health issues. Prolonged screen use reduces real-life engagement, problem-solving, and social interactions. It may lead to anxiety. MRI scans show that children addicted to screens have similar brain patterns to those with substance addiction. Teenage pregnancy is a major public health and social issue, with over 100,000 cases reported annually and a 19% prevalence among girls aged between 15 and 19. High rates of teenage pregnancies and limited access to sexual and reproductive health services expose many young people to risks such as maternal complications and disrupted education, threatening their future ambitions. Distinguished guests, members of the media, I would now like to address the topic of youth civic engagement and participation. Civic engagement encompasses the proactive involvement of citizens, especially young individuals, in activities that advance the political, social, and economic welfare of their communities, and then the nation as a whole. The Foundation for Civic Participation is established in Article 21 of the 1992 Constitution, which affirms every citizen's right to participate in governance. Civic engagement takes various forms, each contributing meaningfully to both community and national progress. For Ghanaian youth, civic engagement involves political participation, including the exercise of voting rights, involvement in policy dialogue, and serving in public office. Advocacy and activism, which entails raising awareness and mobilizing support around critical issues such as human rights, gender equality, and environmental sustainability. Community service and volunteerism manifested through initiatives like cleanups, campaigns, tree planting, health outreach programs, and educational mentorship. With young people constituting 38% of Ghana's population, they represent a dynamic segment capable of propelling national development. Their engagement is evident in areas such as public consultation and dialogue, digital and online engagement, social innovation and entrepreneurship, civic education and awareness campaigns. Nevertheless, the extent of youth participation varies significantly across regions and social groups, reflecting differences in access opportunities and motivation. Nearly half of the country's youth are actively involved in voluntary activities, demonstrating a robust culture of community involvement and social responsibility. This high level of engagement underscores the youth's commitment to contributing their time, expertise, and resources to both national and local development. Youth-led civic movements, including groups like Fix the Country, Youth for Change, the Bar Stop Boys, have exhibited robust informal civic engagement with a focus on accountability, environmental protection, and governance reforms. Additionally, other youth activists and volunteers play substantial roles in activities such as election observations, making meaningful contributions to democratic processes by monitoring electoral processes and practices. Related to civic engagement is community participation, emphasizing the direct involvement of local populations in the planning, implementation, and oversight of developmental initiatives impacting their communities. This principle is central to Ghana's decentralization policy, which mandates metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies to integrate citizens into local decision-making. Community participation is exemplified in programs such as community-based health programs and services, popularly called CHIPS, where local volunteers collaborate with healthcare professionals to provide essential health services, thereby advancing Ghana's primary healthcare coverage. Despite this positive development, the youth remain underrepresented in local governance structures. Available data from the Ministry of Local Government indicates that less than 10% of elected assembly members are below the ages of 35. Currently, the degree of youth engagement in advocacy campaigns varies considerably between rural and urban settings. This disparity largely stems from differences in access, exposure, resources, and opportunity. Urban youth are typically more involved in advocacy efforts due to greater access to information, social media platforms, and established civil society networks that promote campaigns related to governance, climate change, gender equality, and youth empowerment. Conversely, rural youth are generally less engaged in national advocacy initiatives, often as a result of limited internet connectivity, fewer civic education opportunities, and a prioritization of livelihood activities. Nevertheless, they demonstrate significant involvement in community-level based advocacy, particularly regarding issues such as sanitation, educational access, and agricultural support. Addressing this rural-urban divide through targeted civic education, digital inclusion, and youth capacity building initiatives would help ensure equitable opportunities for young people across Ghana to participate meaningfully in national development. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a growing concern regarding the disconnection of youth from national identity and core values, including patriotism, accountability, and integrity. The findings indicate a troubling trend in young people's perceptions of inclusion within governance and policy-making structures. Under 25% of young people feel that their views impact public policy, while 75% either believe their opinions are ignored or unsure if they are valued. This widespread disconnect between youth engagement efforts and policymakers' responsiveness has led to political apathy and lower civic participation. UNICEF Ghana's 2022 Youth Ecosystem Assessment links low voter registration to youth apathy in cities. An Afrobarometer survey shows only 55% of young people are interested in politics, compared to 76% of adults. More participatory structures and visible feedbacks from youth consultations are needed for genuine inclusion in national development. Economic pressure, lack of recognition, poor organization, limited opportunities, and competing commitments like education, youth involvement in civic engagement, and volunteerism. Raising awareness, providing civic education, and changing mindsets are crucial for fostering responsible youth committed to nation building. Formalizing youth volunteerism and promoting inclusive participation will strengthen social cohesion, governance, and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghanaian youth aspire to live in a society that upholds equal opportunities, dignity, and optimism for the future. A significant proportion of young people prioritize relocating abroad in pursuit of improved prospects. Evidenced by the 2024 Afrobarometer report indicating that 72% of Ghanaians aged between 18 and 75 immigration. They want to japa and leave us here. This trend largely stems from the desire for enhanced employment opportunities. The aspirations span education, employment, entrepreneurship, civic participation, and national development. In addition to economic pursuits, young citizens demonstrate a strong commitment to good governance, accountability, and environmental sustainability. So if Galamsey is destroying our water bodies, they have no business staying because they want better lives. They envision a Ghana characterized by transparent leadership, reduced corruption, and meaningful inclusion of young voices in the national decision-making process. Socially, Ghanaian youth are dedicated to advancing national unity, peace, and cultural pride. They seek a nation that values innovation, recognize merits, and ensure equal opportunities for all, regardless of gender or background. These ambitions, grounded in hope, resilience, and creativity, not only reflect the goals of the younger generation, but also serves as a catalyst for Ghanaians' pursuit of inclusive and sustainable development. These endeavors align with President Mohamed's vision for a 24-hour economy, which aims to generate continuous employment, promote innovation, and enhance productivity. This flagship initiative, spearheaded by President John Dramani Mahama, seeks to transform the country's productivity framework by extending economic activities beyond traditional hours and integrating key sectors within a cohesive value chain. This section examines initiatives related to education, skills development, and the economic advancement of youth in Ghana. Education and skills development are central components of Ghana's national development agenda. There has been progress in increasing access to education and improving learning outcomes. Nonetheless, available data on youth indicate areas that require further attention and targeted strategies. According to the 2021 Population and Housing Census, the national literacy rate is 68%. Approximately half of Ghanaian youth have either no formal or only basic education. That is at 49.7%. The youth literacy rate, as reported by the 2015 Labour Force Survey and the Annual Household Income Expenditure Survey 2022 to 2024, is 96.1%. Whilst this reflects high literacy base among young people, it also highlights the importance of enhancing opportunities for higher education and advanced skills development. Between 2015 and 2024, the proportion of youth attaining secondary education increased from 23% to 37.4%, whilst bachelor degree attainments rose from 5.2% to 9.1%. These improvements are attributed to initiatives such as the free SHS and broader access to tertiary education. Technical and vocational education dropped from 2.5% in 2015 to 1% in 2024, highlighting the need for reforms to make TVET more appealing and relevant to the industry. And so if you look at the two data I just gave, where we can create real jobs, it is rather declining. And where the jobs are not there, I call it grammar education, where we all struggle to find space. That is where it looks like our focus is. So as a country, we must begin to shift focus and begin to look at TVET more seriously. Because we all know that it is within that sector that you can easily find employment. In 2015, 70% of young Ghanaians in secondary school or higher education were in humanities and social sciences, with only 23% in STEM fields. Once again, where the focus is wrong. Because it is in STEM education that there are better and more opportunities than the humanities. We are not saying humanities are not important, but we all know how choked the humanities sectors are. And so we need to begin to have a rethink as a country where we need to focus our efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, another area of concern is apprenticeship training. Participation among our youth has remained low and has declined over the years. Apprenticeship remains particularly limited among younger youth aged between 15 and 24, although there has been modest increase in secondary level apprenticeship enrollment between 2015 and 2024. Strengthening partnership with industries and the informal sector, that is master craftsmen, will be critical in reversing this trend and providing practical skills and decent employment. And I believe that when they start the panel discussions and they delve more into the findings, you realize that people who go through apprenticeship easily find jobs. They are easily employable than those who go through our, let me call it again, grammar education. And so we need to look at our needs well and where we can create the real jobs for our people and where we should put our investments. Over the years, Ghana has taken steps to innovation program and the strengthening of technical and vocational education and training reforms. These reforms focus on equipping young persons with contemporary skills, including digital and literacy skills, renewable energy technologies, entrepreneurship and innovation skills, technical and vocational skills, creative industry competitiveness. As a result, we recorded a steady progress by the first quarter of 2022. The NEET rate had fallen to 28.3% and further declined to 24.1% by the third quarter of the same year. The most notable decrease in the NEET rate occurred in 2023, when it reached 18.2%, the lowest in recent years. This reduction corresponds with ongoing government initiatives in youth employment, skills development, and entrepreneurship support. However, data from the fourth quarter of 2024 indicates an increase to 22%. That is from 18.2%. All the gains we made were reversed by 2024 in the last quarter to 22.4% for individuals aged between 15 to 35 and 25.8% for those above the 15 to 24 bracket. While this rise is relatively small, it highlights that efforts to address youth unemployment and inactivities continue to be necessary. Ongoing and targeted initiatives will be required to further reduce the NEET percentage, which was at 22.4% in the last quarter of 2024.
YTV, yearn for more.